In a world where gods are falling from the heavens and entire kingdoms are drowning in chaos, one warrior stands against beings far beyond human understanding. His name is 13, a man who sacrificed his own soul to gain the power to kill gods. But he's not fighting for glory, revenge, or power. He walks the path of death for one reason only: to become the god of death and life itself and bring his family back. As elder gods descend, monsters awaken, and the balance between realms begins to collapse, 13 will clash against divine beings, immortal warriors, and even the terrifying Shido, warriors chosen by the god of death himself. But the deeper he falls into this endless war, the more the world begins to fear what he's slowly becoming: the Shadow God.
This is the world we're standing in now, gods crashing down from the heavens, and with them, the fragile balance between humans and the supernatural shatters into dust. Two brothers, one older, one younger, are thrown right into the middle of this chaos. Their mission is to find their father, even if it means searching among the corpses of fallen gods. They keep moving, drifting from place to place, where every corner hides shadows and monsters. The older brother, wounded and exhausted, still wears that smile. You know the kind, fake, but strong enough to keep the younger one following him straight into the darkness. Step after step, hiding from creatures born of the void, they push forward. But the gods keep falling, and soon the brothers hit a dead end. And here's where hope betrays them. The older brother reaches for light, a spark of salvation, but instead, what they find is misery. Standing before them is a towering figure, a dark creature cloaked in divinity's shape. The deity-like monster immobilizes the older brother. He stretches his hand toward his sibling, desperate to hold on, but before their fingers can meet, the void swallows him whole. That moment changes everything. The older brother rises again, reborn as a warrior, Thrash. And beside him, his younger brother remains, but only as a spirit, bound to him forever. Now our guy, standing tall inside the Suikon kingdom. He calls himself the protector of the Suikon kingdom. Instead of going by Thrash, he's rocking the name 13. His spirit brother not having it though. He keeps nagging, saying that name doesn't sit right. But names aside, the real problem is their master. The deadline was 10 days to bring back a dragon, yet here they are, dragging it out for a whole month. You can already imagine how furious their master's gonna be. Then it happens. A meteor crashes near the borders of Suikon. Except, nah, that's no meteor. That's a fallen god. Thrash instantly drops into spider stance, keeping low, trying to stay hidden. LOL, his spirit brother cracks a joke, saying he looks more like a dog crouching like that. And then we see him, a black man, eyes sharp enough to tell you straight away this guy isn't ordinary. He's wondering what's killing gods like this. And yup, you guessed it, he's a god too. The divine are dying one after another. No one knows why, and in their confusion, many gods are storming into the mortal realm. Some searching for answers, others burning for revenge. That's when Thrash makes his move. He blitzes in with insane speed, so fast the god can't even react. The black man realizes he's outmatched, so the god takes over his body. He asks Thrash about his name, and our boy just stands there, aura flaring, declaring, "I'm 13, protector of the Suikon kingdom." He even calls the god a trespasser, but the god mocks him back, saying, "I walked this world before your kind even had legs." The god unleashes his technique, countless hands shooting out, aiming straight for Thrash. But Thrash, with that ridiculous speed, dodges them all, grabs the man's face, and detonates it in an explosion. He pulls back, creating distance, but his spirit brother won't shut up, warning him how dangerous this is, insisting they should bail before the god figures out who they really are. Annoying, but that's his brother's spirit for you. And then it escalates. The god, still using the black man's body as a vessel, starts shifting, morphing into his true form. Thrash knows this fight is about to get serious. He straps on his mask, aura surging, ready to face what's coming. Now it's official. Our boy is standing face to face with a god. This god's name? Lord Shiva. The terrifying part, Shiva could wipe out dimensions, entire universes, if he wanted. But instead of flexing, he was curious. Why's our boy hiding behind that mask? So Shiva tapped into the god's sight, the vision that lets him pierce through illusions and see the truth of someone's being. Now, let me break it down for you. There are two absolute truths across all realities. Everything is connected. Everything needs energy. Call it chi, ether, life force, whatever you want. It's the universal current flowing through all existence. Nothing stands alone. Every being, every spark of energy, every life form is tied together like threads in an infinite weave. And the gods, with their heightened awareness, they can see those threads. That sight gives them access to all knowledge. But the catch, you can't reach those threads without a window. The soul is that window. So when Shiva looked, he expected to see the soul shining through. Instead, he froze. Shocked. Our boy had no soul. Nothing. A void. Turns out, 13 sacrificed his own soul to gain the strength to slay gods. That's the price he paid, and he wasn't about to waste it. He launched himself into the air with insane speed, chains whipping from his sword as he unleashed his attack. Shiva countered, and the clash detonated into a massive explosion that shook everything around them. Meanwhile, not far off, an old man rode an elephant. With him were his two children, a son and a daughter. The son stared at the chaos, baffled. How could gods fall so easily? The irony was brutal. Beings born from divinity, meant to govern the elements themselves, now being toppled. His sister, though, wasn't focused on the fight. She was digging through something, then tossed him a scroll. She teased him, wondering what had his attention so much that he'd risk her wrath. She was bored of studying these scrolls, but he promised to share the knowledge as long as she kept it secret from their father. He leaned in, tapped her forehead, and transferred the information directly. And that's when we finally get the lore of this kingdom. Suikon, founded by three extraordinary figures, a master swordsman, a brilliant general, and a mysterious princess. The princess came from a distant eastern land ruled by a mad emperor. His reign was pure tyranny, but she remained compassionate, beloved by the people. That love drove the emperor insane with jealousy. He slaughtered those who adored her and locked her away in a chamber forged from the purest iron. But the emperor underestimated his own men. His general and his greatest warrior, the master swordsman, were loyal to her, not him. They broke her free. The emperor caught wind of their plan, though, and unleashed his army. The battle was brutal. Blood everywhere. The princess, the general, and the swordsman fought against overwhelming odds. Hope was fading fast. But then the swordsman, with his unmatched strength, turned the tide. He cut down their enemies, and together the three toppled the emperor. Homeless but unbroken, they forged a new kingdom, Suikon. And for years it thrived. But peace never lasts forever. Something began to change within the master swordsman. And just as that lore hit its peak, the sister stopped reading. Her brother noticed their father had halted the elephant. The old man was staring at the sky, where thunder was rolling in. Now listen up. I know the story feels like it's throwing random pieces at us left and right, but don't stress. Once we start piecing it together, it all makes sense. We roll back the clock, for months earlier. Southern Grecia. King Pericles stands outside, face heavy with sorrow, alone exposed. That's when soldier Ezen approaches, warning him it's reckless to be out here without protection. Ezen insists, Pericles is their ruler, gods or no gods. But Pericles hushes him, warning not to speak so boldly. See, Pericles owes everything to the gods. Hermes himself revealed this paradise to him. But now, with gods falling, their paradise is vulnerable. Pericles shows Ezen a message, straight from Suikon. The message urges him to abandon his gods and start anew. And then it happens. A fallen god crashes to the ground. Hermes. Pericles reacts instantly, ordering Ezen to gather the people and flee. But before they can move, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, appears. She finishes Hermes off. Pericles can't even understand her words. She's speaking in the god's language. Then she raises her bow and kills him on the spot. Beside her stands Ares. He mocks her, telling her to save her threats, since she'll be the one explaining to Zeus how they avenged their kin by slaughtering their worshippers. And then a shadow enters the scene. A mysterious man, dark-skinned, dressed head to toe in black. His mission, kill Pericles, but Artemis already handled it, so he bows, showing gratitude, then smiles. He claims he knows the reason the gods are falling, and he proposes a deal. Fast forward back to the present. Our boy 13 is locked in battle with Shiva. He's trying to slash through Shiva's thick skin, but it's useless. Even his younger brother tells him to drop this tactic. Shiva's punches are devastating, and with 6 arms he's attacking and defending all at once. The black man speaks to his lord, Shiva, urging him to end the fight quickly. His body is reaching its limit. Shiva, meanwhile, is stunned. 13 can see the god himself. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't you say Shiva can destroy universes and dimensions? You're right, but there is a key, the realm rules. There are 3 realms in this story: the god realm, the mortal realm, and the death realm. Each realm runs on its own laws. When a god enters another realm, those laws bind them. In the mortal realm, a god must either descend or possess a suitable host, and each choice carries consequences. That's why Shiva can't unleash his full cosmic power here. So the fight rages. Shiva throws destructive blows, but 13 uses his speed, chains whipping as he dashes forward. Down below the cliff, the father and his children, Chimera and Sekka, hear the chaos above. They pause, listening, and then it happens. 13 drags Shiva down, slamming him into the ground, sword thrust deep into his body. Shiva shifts his gaze. His attention locks onto the old man and his children. children. Our boy tries to drive his blade deeper into Shiva's body, but it's useless. Shiva's skin is too dense, too unyielding. And then, remember that serpent coiled around Shiva earlier? It strikes. Enlarging itself, it lunges from behind, sinking its fangs into our boy. The old man steps forward, introducing himself as Bacchus. Calm, steady, he asks Shiva to let them pass, claiming they're nothing more than travelers. But Shiva feels insulted. A god spoken to without kneeling? That's blasphemy. His decision is instant. He'll exterminate them all. But Bacchus doesn't flinch. He declares they will not kneel, because Shiva is not the god they serve. That's when Shiva realizes these three aren't ordinary humans. They're first men, the prototypes, the first beings created by gods before mankind itself. And Shiva knows their god, an ancient one far older, far more cruel than even him. Shiva tries to crush them with his power, but they don't even tremble. Bacchus stands firm. Our business is none of yours. As Shiva prepares to wipe them out, Chimera steps forward. In that moment, Bacchus sees it. His little girl is gone. She's become an adult, filled with conviction, stripped of fear. Chimera raises her hand, touching Shiva's palm, and she commands him to stay his hand. She dives into Shiva's memories. What she finds isn't rage, it's fragments of peace, times of true love, moments before those feelings were stolen, replaced with fury and confusion. The truth surfaces. Shiva's torment comes from his lover, Parvati. Then Seka steps forward, calm, resolute, assuring Shiva that they will stop the godfall. And Bacchus, watching, feels pride. His children, born gifted with powers beyond their people. Powers that could tame a god unraveling into destruction. Powers that could only come from the god they call all. To feel all things, to know all things, that's their gift. But pride is poisoned with rage. Bacchus wonders if he himself is unworthy of such power. Meanwhile, our boy 13 is still locked in battle with the serpent's fury. His brother urges him, call their master for help. But 13 refuses. He'd rather die here than beg. He roars out, declaring himself death incarnate, the ender of existence, the destroyer of all. With that cry, he breaks free from the serpent's fangs and delivers a devastating punch that shatters its mouth. But victory comes at a cost. The venom is already inside him. It spreads fast. His mask slips, now he's dying. His bond with his younger brother is severed. His face is visible now, but his true identity still hidden. Our boy 13 died, just like that. And normally, when people die, their souls head to heaven or hell. But not him, because remember, he traded away his soul for the power he wields. That deal means every time he dies, he doesn't pass on. He's dragged straight back to the wretched death realm. And waiting there? The death god himself. Ender. Yeah, the same deity that appeared at the beginning and killed our boy. That was Ender all along. Ender scolds him, complaining about his lack of caution. But 13? He mocks back, laughing. For a god of death, you sure prattle like an old woman. That's our boy for ya. Death doesn't tame him. But facts are facts. He died, and his recklessness is the same as it was back then. Ender reminds him, his mission was supposed to be bringing Master Anjong a dragon. So why disobey? Flashback time. 13 began his training as a Shidu practitioner, chasing the power of a god of death. Power to kill anything. He was made protector of the Suikon kingdom, so he could wield that strength. He saw an opportunity, and he took it. Before his death fully claimed him, Shiva asked, who is this boy really? 13 didn't give him the answer he wanted. Instead, he gave a warning. No matter what, he will become a god. And if Shiva stands in his way, he'll be destroyed. That's when Shiva's vessel reached its limit. The old black man hosting him died on the spot. 13 fell, returning to the death realm. Shiva ascended back to the god's realm. Now, in the present, Ender wonders if making 13 the next Shidu was a mistake. But the godfall has opened the door for Death's plan. The re-emergence of the Shidu is the next step. And once a Shidu master grows strong enough, they'll become the vessel for Ender's unimaginable power, a god without limits. 13 screams out. He wants back in the mortal realm. He doesn't care about dying. He wants strength. His goal, to become a god of death and life, so he can bring his family back. Ender agrees, but first, a test. A man with a greatsword lunges forward, attacking. 13 blocks with his chains. The man's name? 9. You guessed it. Ender isn't raising just one Shidu. He's raising multiple. And since 13 carries that number, it means he's the weakest among them. We shift now to the Suikon kingdom itself. Deep inside the castle, Shinrei and Captain Kogetsu are making their way through the halls. Remember, these two once served under the Mad King of Suikon. You guys recall that lore, right? But times have changed. Shinrei now serves the princess, and he's bringing his old comrade Kogetsu to meet her. As they venture deeper, they arrive at the Empress's inner sanctum, the heart of the Divine Council. Here stand the old guards of the Mad Emperor, but their roles have been reshaped under the princess's rule. Akira now serves as prison warden. Nabutora oversees border defense. Matsudaira handles trade and diplomacy with foreign lands. But then Kogetsu notices something strange, a hooded man. He can't recognize him, can't even sense his presence. And suddenly, a voice speaks inside his mind. It's the princess. At first, Kogetsu thinks the statue is talking, but then she manifests before them, naked. Now hold on, it's not what you think. Kogetsu is caught off guard, but she explains. His mind is feeding him information about her physical form, height, weight, appearance. He's only seeing what his own mind wants to see. What a dirty captain we've got here. Huh. Still, Kogetsu insists on meeting her physically. But she can't. For months, she's been in the god realm, communicating directly with the gods, even as the godfall spreads. And the godfall is brutal. In the southwest, countless godfallen crash violently from the sky into a populated village. In the north, a demon forest springs to life, consuming everything that passes through. Amid this chaos, Suikon stands as a sanctuary, a safe haven for those fleeing destruction. Kogetsu urges the princess to send aid immediately, but the hooded man speaks. Those people are outside Suikon's borders. Better to strengthen defenses here. Kogetsu protests, refusing to stand idle while innocents die. The hooded man responds by conjuring red chains, forcing obedience. Now those red chains, familiar, aren't they? Hold that thought. The princess intervenes, warning Kogetsu not to make an enemy of this man, because this hooded figure is none other than Master Onjong, leader of the elite vanguard protecting Suikon's borders. And yes, this is the same Onjong who ordered our boy to bring back a dragon. Just wait, the threads are weaving together. Onjong explains, the princess is building a sanctuary for those abandoned by their gods. But such a concept will tempt challengers. 2 months ago, far away in Augustus, guards patrolled the borders. And who should appear? The black man who hunted Pericles. But this time, he's not alone. He's accompanied by powerful allies. Gods themselves. The guards stare wide-eyed. They can clearly see the gods standing behind the black boy, but their minds refuse to accept it. They convince themselves it's dark magic. Idiots. If only they had let him pass. One guard lunges forward. The black boy moves like shadow, daggers drawn, dodge, counter, stab. Another comes from the side. He doesn't even break stride, hurling a dagger that kills the man instantly. His legs shimmer with dark magic, steps vanishing into silence. He suppresses them all with ease. Rumors swirl, and now they're proven true. A man in black, wielding dark iron knives, is a threat beyond measure. But then, something unexpected. An arrow pierces his head. A child fired it, a slave the guards had taken in. For a moment, reality bends. The boy should be dead. But he isn't. Immortal. The arrow means nothing. The black boy looks at the child. Instead of rage, he shows mercy. He lets the kid escape, but mercy is crushed instantly. Artemis appears, loosing another arrow. The slave dies on the spot. The black boy is furious. Part of the deal was clear. Slaves were to be spared. Then Hades steps forward. He uses his power, reviving the child, but not as human. The boy rises as a zombie, stripped of will, bound to obey. And Hades doesn't stop there. Every guard they encounter, he twists into the same fate. An army of the dead, forged by the god of the underworld himself. We're back in the death realm. Our boy 13 is locked in combat with number 9. Both relentless, neither giving an inch. Their blows echo across the void, chains clashing against steel, neither side backing down. Lord Ender, the god of death, watches. But he isn't alone. He summons another Shidu to witness the fight. The other Shidu scoffing at how frail he looks, yet noting something strange. He can speak to his dead brother. They whisper among themselves, questioning why Ender gave 13 his chains. Because only Ender himself and the master wield those chains. And the master? He's the number 1 Shidu. I'll keep that reveal tucked away for later, you'll see. The fight escalates, growing more vicious. Number 9 gains the upper hand, landing a direct blow. That's when Ender speaks, explaining 13's origin to the others. When Ender plucked him from death, he knew this boy was different. Unlike the rest, 13 wasn't paralyzed by fear. He sought the god of death out. He prayed for Ender's aid. Something horrible had caused his brother's death. Something 13 blamed himself for. Something he desperately wanted the power to change. Ender answered. He granted 13 power and the chance to become a god. But the price was steep, his soul. And yet, something happened that even Ender hadn't foreseen. Ender cuts the tale short, reminding the Shidu of the rules he bent to allow them to occupy the mortal realm. Their mission is clear: strengthen mind and body. Only then will Ender choose the strongest among them to become his vessel. A vessel to house his power unbound by the Elder God's laws. Our boy takes the hit, but he doesn't flinch, doesn't fall, doesn't kneel. He keeps standing, aura farming like hell itself, making it clear he won't be stopped. His vow is unshaken. He will bring his family back. 9 laughs at him. To 9, 13 looks delusional, trapped in fantasy, refusing to accept reality. Then 9 spits out his version of the truth. The moment you become a god of death, you become a murderer. And 9 knows murder. Back when he was alive, he was a killer, slaughtering people left and right, calling it his calling. What can I say? We've got a lunatic here. His ambition? To ascend as god of death so he can murder thousands at will. And the best part for him? Every death at his hands would be an act of God. 9 lunges forward. 13 dodges, but this time his movements shift. His attack and dodge patterns change. He avoids the strike, closes the distance, then focuses on defense. He's fighting like Shiva did earlier. Even 9 notices. The boy's rhythm has changed. 13 plants himself, taking the spider stance. LOL, though every character in this world calls it a dog technique. He knows he has to finish this quickly. His spirit brother needs him. When 13 fell to Shiva, his connection with his younger brother was severed. That brother, now the spirit brother, was pushed back into the lower levels of the death realm. But 13 doesn't panic. He knows his brother's strength. He even admits his brother is the better fighter, just like their father. And when Ender took 13, he gave his spirit brother their father's sword. Back to the fight. 13 enters a focused state. To execute this instant teleportation technique, he needs absolute concentration, moving from one point to another without crossing the space between. This is the Vorpal Phantom step. Instant, timeless. He doesn't move. He simply appears in front of 9. 13 copies Shiva's attack. He plants his feet like Shiva did, then strikes upward. Ender watches, realizing the boy isn't just mimicking, he's stealing techniques. If 13 can steal god-level techniques, this changes everything. But before their clash lands, someone intervenes. Anjong. He steps in, stopping both of them. Wait, what? That's right. Anjong is working under the god of death. And the big par is that Anjong is the #1 Shidu. Even crazier? That phantom technique 13 just used. It was taught to him by Anjong himself. And while you're wondering, wasn't Anjong inside Suikon? Correct. But right now, he's in Suikon and the death realm simultaneously. This is his miracle advanced technique, the phantom. What can I say? This story has gathered every character aura farming to the max. There is one thing about Anjong, like guys, every single sentence he spits out, he adds, I am amazing. Bro, we get it. You're amazing. Just shut up already. Anyway, continuing. Anjong starts talking casually to Ender, explaining that he was appointed a retainer by the princess. The princess knows the Shidu are an elite vanguard meant to protect the realm, but she doesn't know their true intent. And that's good news. Ender's plan won't be interfered with by the mortal realm. Thanks to Anjong, Princess Game will be most useful to them. All the Shidu bow to Anjong. He commands them from both Suikon and the death realm. A reminder that Anjong is omnipresent. The stage is set. Ender's plan is ready to unfold. The Godfall has opened the door. More and more areas within Suikon's borders are left vulnerable. Apparitions thought long dead are re-emerging by the hundreds. The elder gods will descend into the mortal realm to deal with them. And soon, powerful enemies of the gods, brimming with spiritual energy, will seek to reclaim the realm. Right now, with incidents spread out and away from the capital, each Shidu will manage a section. Their mission? To thrive in the chaos by doing exactly what Lord Ender designed them to do. Feed on the souls of the living. Anjong lays it out. Anjong has mastery of omnipresence. Number 6 has mastery of form. Each Shidu has mastered a single aspect of Shidu, aligned with their natural skill set. Their strength, vitality, and prowess will grow exponentially with every soul they devour. And Anjong makes it clear, they must not limit themselves. Every living being is food. Demons, animals, humans. Once their strength rises high enough, they'll be able to challenge even the elder gods. And when the elders are finally out of the way, Ender will reward the strongest among them with the office of God of Death. Ender adds, Shiva may already be aware of their presence. Thanks to 13 for that little slip. But not all is smooth. Number 2 and number 5 are missing. Anjong anticipated they might prove problematic. So 9, the best tracker, is tasked with finding them and reporting back. As for 13, our boy is still the weakest of the Shidu practitioners. Anjong plans to leave him out of this grand design. 9 then asks Ender a chilling question, more like a request. If he sees 13's weak, useless self during his mission, can he kill him? Remember, 9 has mastery of spirits. Ender's answer? Cold as death itself. Of course you can. Now our boy is targeted by both Shiva and one of the Shidu. Once the meeting ends, 13 is sent back to the mortal realm. His focus returns, and immediately, a monster is already attacking. 6 hours earlier, Bakmus and his children had been walking for days, following Sekka's visions. Exhausted, their father wanted a break. And yes, they'd been dragging 13's body along with them the whole way. Ahead stood 2 massive statues. This was the Mugen Pass, the path leading straight to the capital of Suikon. Sekka, gifted with foresight, already already knew what was happening. He sensed the statues weren't just stone, they were linked to the princess herself. Through them, she could watch everything happening along her kingdom's borders. And among those statues, a demon lurked. Backmus told his children he had men's business to handle. Sekka joined him, leaving Chimera to guard 13's body. LOL, Sekka sat there thinking, men's business? Why doesn't he just say he has to pee? Then, something incredible. The spirit brother returned to the mortal realm. Sekka greeted him warmly. Meanwhile, as father and son handled their so-called business, Backmus asked if Chimera knew their true goal. Turns out, both father and brother were lying to her. She believed they were on a quest to save the gods. But Backmus despised the gods. Sekka warned him with his visions, but Backmus's bitterness ran deeper. It wasn't pure hate, it was jealousy. His children had power. He didn't. Sekka grew angry. Their king had fled, leaving their people to die. But Backmus didn't care. He made it clear. He didn't value those cowardly people. He only brought his children to ensure his own safe passage. Then the demon revealed itself, stepping from between the statues to attack. Father and son dodged, but the beast turned toward Chimera. Meanwhile, Chimera used her power to reshape the spirit brother, transforming him from a floating ball into a small, cute spirit boy. Better form, more presence. But danger struck from behind. The demon nearly killed her. And that's when it happened. 13 was sent back to the mortal realm. He awoke instantly, blade in hand, and in one clean strike, he beheaded the demon on the spot. Now let's check in on the unleashed Shidu. Number 12 is predictable as ever. His obsession with proving he's the strongest drives him straight into the thick of battle. Demon ninjas who've trained for centuries? Doesn't matter. He's cutting them down like they're nothing, absorbing their souls one after another. That hunger for dominance is his fuel. Number 10 plays a different game. He's not the strongest, but he's clever. He waits, patient, lurking for the right souls to consume. His mastery over the environment means he can bend entire countries to his will. Imagine that, whole nations under his control. Then there's number 8, ruthless, cunning, and political. She doesn't just kill rulers, she manipulates them, turns them against each other, and rises to power herself. People die by her hand, yet still worship her. That's the twisted legitimacy she brings to the Shidu name. The rest? Same brutal methods. Kill, consume, repeat. Number 7 openly declares civilians fair game. Number 11, with his insane speed, wipes out crowds in the blink of an eye. And number 6, a shapeshifter. Together, they're unstoppable. Ender's plan is unfolding faster than anyone expected. When it comes to Shiva, Ender isn't sending anyone else. He's going himself. That's how serious this is. Then Anjong dares to bring up our boy 13, suggesting he should be reconsidered as one of the Shidu. Ender shuts him down instantly. Turns out Anjong hasn't trained 13 properly, and today proved something terrifying. Our boy might have the ability to steal the powers of gods. Ender reminds Anjong of his duty, cultivate 13's potential. And honestly, even the mighty Anjong looks helpless in front of Ender. So much for being amazing, huh? Flashback time. When 13 first started training after his deal with Ender, Anjong handed him a flower. The lesson? Before becoming a vessel of death, he needed to understand life. The exercise was simple. Wilt the flower. A Shidu draws on the universe's energy to sustain themselves. Master this, and they'll never need food or even air. 13 focused, sensing the living energy inside the flower. But as he pushed further, his form twisted. Anjong panicked, begging him to stop. 13 looked like a cursed child, draining energy from everything around him. That moment revealed just how much potential he truly had. Terrifying, but fascinating. Back to the present, 13 beheads a demon and devours its soul. Power surges through him, and suddenly, the spirit brother appears. Shocked, 13 demands to know who did this to him. But then his gaze shifts to Chimera and the death stare he gives her. Meanwhile, in the god realm, Mount Olympus, Shiva is stunned to see the godfall spreading this far. He's here to rally help from other gods. But then Ender arrives ready to finish Shiva once and for all. And just like that, the stage is set for something even more explosive. So here's where Shiva finally locks in his theory. Mortals, they're not equal to gods. That's a truth carved in stone. But when 13 attacked him, everything felt off. At first, it didn't make sense. Then the pieces started clicking. The chains 13 used? Those weren't ordinary, they were Ender's chains. And the strength he showed? Way beyond what a mortal should have. Shiva had to dig deeper into his divine power just to keep up. That's when it hit him. 13 was born to fight gods. And who gave him that power? None other than Ender. Now it all lines up. The gods are dying, the godfall disease is spreading, and Ender's fingerprints are all over it. The clash escalates. Divine powers collide, shaking the god realm itself. Shiva lands a brutal punch, smashing Ender right in the jaw and sending him flying. Ender summons his divine weapon, the Death Scythe. Flames roar into existence, a tornado straight from hell itself. Shiva blocks with his arms, but that leaves him wide open. Ender seizes the moment, dashing in for the strike. Things don't go his way. Ender gets stabbed. He forgot one crucial detail. Shiva Shiva was limited when fighting 13. Here, in the god realm, no limits. And now Shiva unveils his own divine weapon, the legendary trident Trishula. The stage is set. Ender with his death scythe, Shiva with Trishula. Mortal-born power versus divine authority. Shiva couldn't wrap his head around it. What could Ender possibly gain from the godfall? In that moment, Shiva had the perfect chance to finish him off, but he didn't. And trust me, that hesitation? It's going to cost him big. Keep that in mind. See, Shiva wasn't just fighting for pride. His lover died because of the godfall, and he needed answers. Why had Ender betrayed them? Why unleash this plague on gods and mortals alike? With rage boiling, the two clashed again. Shiva spun his trident, unleashing a massive explosion that shook the god realm. But come on, did you really think the god of death would go down that easy? Ender answered with his own divine art, the binding hands of fate. From the void, countless spectral hands erupted, each one capable of sealing away even a god forever. Ender thought he had Shiva locked down, so he finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of his philosophy. Ender doesn't choose who dies. He watched humanity suffer, the poor, the weak, the innocent. Meanwhile, tyrants and murderers thrived, feeding off misfortune. Humanity itself divided, declaring some men unequal. And what about the gods? Ender saw them as enablers, coddling humanity, keeping the cycle alive. His truth was brutal. Death is the only equalizer. Between man, and between man and God. That's why the gods must die too. Only when the pillars separating them are destroyed will death truly be indiscriminate. But Shiva wasn't buying it. To him, gods bless humanity, they guide, they help. Ender's vision was twisted. Still, the clash of ideals only fueled their battle. Shiva tore through the binding hands of fate like they were nothing. Then he unleashed his own divine art, triple-fold heaven piercer. A colossal trident manifested above, crashing down toward Ender. Ender countered with his soul-binding chains, trying to hold it back. Shiva scoffed, believing those chains were useless. But Ender wasn't done. He invoked another divine art, the chains of hell. From the abyss, a massive skeletal figure rose, summoned straight from the depths. Shiva's massive trident stopped cold by Ender's towering skeleton. Ender explained it clearly. These chains weren't just for show. They're forged for wayward souls that escape the death realm, and with hellfire coursing through them, they incinerate anything they touch. Shiva still thought he had the upper hand, but Ender came prepared. Just wait for the twist. Controlling the skeleton, Ender launched a punch. Shiva was caught off guard. Despite its size, the skeleton's attacks were insanely fast. Shiva dodged, but his mind was racing. Gods don't have souls, so even if this thing touched him, it shouldn't kill him. Something wasn't adding up. Ender pressed harder, chaining attacks together, cornering Shiva, even immobilizing him. But Shiva unleashed his divine art, Natraja Cosmic Dancer. In this form, his control over time and motion skyrocketed. Ender's voids couldn't even graze him. With ease, Shiva slammed the skeleton back, forcing it away. But Ender wasn't done. He summoned the black man's soul into the god realm, Shiva's previous vessel. And remember, Ender's chains are designed to erase wayward souls forever. He commanded the skeleton to strike, and if it touched the soul, it would vanish from existence. The soul cried out, begging Shiva for help. Shiva dashed in with blinding speed, stopping the skeleton just in time. But in saving the soul, he got tangled in Ender's chains. The soul kept pleading, and Shiva fought desperately to protect it. Say what you will, but this moment showed Shiva isn't heartless. He's fighting to save more than just himself. Then, out of nowhere, someone entered the scene, clapping. Ender froze. Why was she revealing herself to Shiva? She explained calmly. The plans had changed, and Shiva would have figured it out sooner or later anyway. The figure? Not just any goddess. To mortals, she's known as the embodiment of Godfall itself. We're at Vuldur 1 week ago. The Jotnar were torching villages, convinced the world belonged to them now that the gods were falling. Ares was there too. He summoned his divine weapon, the bloody sword, and took the front lines, serving as the distraction. The Jotnar are fierce, but not fools. They knew better than to rush him head-on, especially with Vuldur's mountains giving them a strategic edge. But that advantage? About to be flipped. The villagers hid high in the mountains, but being surrounded meant those peaks would become their coffin. Artemis struck from afar, raining destruction with her divine weapon, the arrow of destiny. She suppressed them effortlessly, annihilating their ranks. Meanwhile, Hades revived the fallen, swelling their numbers even further. And finally, Antaeus crushed them outright. The Black Boy's plan to take the village in one decisive strike worked flawlessly. But remember, the gods weren't serving him. This was just a temporary deal. Artemis even raised her bow to kill him, sensing something off. But Ares stopped her, reminding her that the Black Boy was immortal. Even her divine bow couldn't end him. For now, they played along along with his game. Inside the church, priests stood ready, but they were slaughtered instantly. These weren't ordinary priests, they were Godhar priests, which meant another god was present. The boy approached a strange door guarded by a demon. The moment the demon saw him, recognition hit instantly. The black boy's name? Dane, the tormentor, the most trusted warrior of the god behind that door. And that god was none other than Thor. Dane was furious. Thor had let the Jotnar overrun the village while he drank himself into a stupor in his chamber. Dane demanded to know, was this behavior befitting a god? Thor raised Mjolnir, reminding Dane that he had once saved him when he was just a servant. But Dane had long since repaid that debt. Then came the twist. Dane stripped, activating a strange spell. He no longer worshipped any god. His god was himself. Thor was stunned. These were anti-god arrays. Thor attacked with Mjolnir, but the strike was useless. The anti-magic nullified divine power. Thor knew such magic required immense life force to activate, so he used his god sight to pierce the illusion. But he couldn't see through it. Dane was surrounded by hundreds of infinite threads. Thor remembered. Was it because of that? Long ago, people were trapped in a cave, praying for Thor's help. He ignored them. Weeks passed, hunger and panic set in, and they tore each other apart. Dane was among them. Thor wondered, could those threads be his crewmates? Thor asked if Dane sought revenge. Dane's answer was chilling. He wasn't here for vengeance. He was here to save the gods, to renew the people's faith in them. But first, the Suikon kingdom had to be destroyed. Dane's goal was to fashion the gods into beings worthy of worship. But let's be real, he was using this tactic to make the gods obey him, at least for now. Back in the mortal realm, the march toward Suikon kingdom was underway. Dane had convinced Thor to join him, and together with the other gods, they advanced. Their path led them to Mugen Pass, a place Dane already knew was under surveillance. The statues there acted as the Empress's eyes. Thor and Ares wasted no time, smashing the statues to pieces. Dane leapt forward, finishing off the remnants with raw strength, showing he wasn't just relying on magic, his power was real. But Dane wasn't naive. He knew the gods would betray him eventually, and sure enough, they chose this moment to seal his fate. The three gods combined their attacks, unleashing everything at once. Dane responded by activating his anti-god magic, confident it would nullify their divine powers. But here's the twist. He forgot about Antaeus. Striking from behind, Antaeus's attack landed, and Dane's anti-god magic failed against him. Dane staggered, falling under the weight of the assault. Antaeus moved in, ready to crush him completely. But Dane wasn't finished. He regained his balance mid-fall, dashed forward, and prepared to counterattack. Antaeus swung his massive arm, but Dane, immortal as he is, used that very arm like a walkway, stepping across it to avoid a fatal blow. Still, something gnawed at him. Why wasn't his anti-god magic working against Antaeus? That's when Thor stepped in to explain. Thanks to Ares, he had pieced together how Dane's anti-magic functioned, and more importantly, what it couldn't counter. It all came down to the celestial hierarchy, the divine ranking system. At the top are chaos beings, deities so far removed from mortal realms that little is known about them. Next, the elder gods, enforcers of cosmic rules, capable of maintaining or destroying realms, some rivaling creator gods in power. Then come the common gods, earthbound and elemental deities who interact directly with mortals. Finally, the demigods, born of gods and mortals, who must earn their divinity through trials and recognition. Thor revealed the truth. Dane's anti-god magic didn't work against beings higher in the hierarchy. And Antaeus? He wasn't just another pawn, he was their trump card. From behind, more gods arrived. Among them stood Zeus. The full force of Mount Olympus had descended. Ares declared their intent. They would reclaim the mortal realm by force. If humanity refused to worship them, they would enslave them instead. Dane, furious, raised the bigger issue, Godfall. Thor's response was chilling. Mankind would suffer as payment for the gods' losses. And even exchange. That was the breaking point. Dane roared that they weren't worth 100 mortal lives. Ares swung at him, but Dane dodged and shifted his anti-magic array from defense to offense. Now it wasn't just nullifying, it was god-killer magic. He was ready to end Ares. But Artemis struck, her arrow piercing him mid-attack. The gods had anticipated this move. Dane crashed into the ground, and Artemis followed, bow drawn to finish the job. She spoke in the divine tongue, knowing Dane could understand. She reminded him, immortal or not, he could still be hurt, still be tortured. She ordered him to pray, to beg her to spare his miserable life. Dane laughed. Pray? To who? To gods who were being hunted? To the god-fallen already slain? No, he prayed to the great shadow god, asking for strength to defeat his enemies. And just like that, his prayer was answered. Our boy 13 appeared, blasting Artemis away with such such force she flew like a rag doll. The spirit brother couldn't resist cracking a joke about how far she flew. It was ridiculous. And now, with a swarm of gods present and 13 stepping into the fray, things are about to get even more explosive. Now we shift to the capital city, Suikon. Kogetsu was on his way to carry out his mission when Anjong appeared before him. Funny thing is, even though Anjong was standing right in front of him, Kogetsu still couldn't see him. Kogetsu couldn't figure out what business Anjong had with him. After all, Anjong's team was tasked with guarding Suikon's borders, while Kogetsu's duty was to protect the capital and safeguard the Empress. But let's just say Anjong didn't trust Kogetsu one bit, especially given his reputation during the Mad Emperor era. Their argument quickly escalated into a fight. Kogetsu drew his blade with lightning speed, his technique so sharp that you wouldn't even realize you'd been cut until it was already over. But Anjong was beyond that level. He already knew the lore behind Kogetsu. During the Mad Emperor's reign, an elite guard protected the king. They were called the Red, infamous for their crimson garb and their brutal, bloodthirsty assassinations. None were more feared than their leader, Captain Genjuro Kogetsu. Anjong pulled out his chains, ready to take the fight seriously. But before things could go further, Magistrate Shinrei arrived, scolding them both. He reminded them this wasn't the time for infighting. Shinrei ordered Anjong back to his assigned area. Anjong calmly replied that he was already there. Kogetsu was baffled. Mugen Pass was at least a day away. But thanks to Anjong's technique, he was omnipresent, existing everywhere at once. Meanwhile, back at the main battle, our boy 13 knew exactly what these gods had been doing since Godfall, slaughtering innocents left and right. And for what? Nothing. Killing people wouldn't stop Godfall. Furious, he questioned whether this was what it meant to be a god. 13 locked in, ready to take them all on by himself. His spirit brother quickly reminded him they needed a plan. Unlike Shiva, who possessed a mortal host, these gods had descended directly. That made them weaker than their full divine selves, but they still had access to their divine abilities. Chimera agreed with the spirit brother's plan. 13 wondered if bringing them here was the right call, but he forgot they were the ones who dragged his body here in the first place. Then Sekka stepped in. His visions, he explained, are never wrong. He told 13 that they needed to be here, to bear witness. That was all he could reveal. What Sekka didn't say was that this moment was absolutely crucial. If 13 made the wrong choice, Suikon would be destroyed. 13 then turned to Dane, declaring he would take things from here. He unleashed his chains, proclaiming he would be a god worthy of worship. Dane was stunned. After all, his own plan was to make the gods worthy of worship. And now here was a mortal already thinking like him. As Antaeus attacked, 13 leapt into the air and delivered a devastating punch, slamming the Titan into the ground. The protector of Suikon Kingdom had arrived, and he wasn't holding back. Several hours earlier, our boy 13 had already beheaded the demon. His eyes then locked on Chimera. She thought she could escape, but in a blink, 13 was right in front of her, ready to strike. But the moment he touched her, Chimera tapped into his emotions. Her empathic link forced him to remember what 9 once said. When you become a god of death, you become a murderer. She reminded him, this isn't the kind of god he wants to be. He wants his brother back, but not at the cost of innocent lives. Still, even now, he felt fate pulling him closer to that path. 13 snapped back to his senses just as Backmus and Sekka returned. Sekka explained they came in peace and laid everything out. Chimera's empathic link gave her access to his deepest feelings through physical contact. It had served her well before, even against Shiva. Sekka added that his visions foretold this encounter, and that 13 was the one destined to ensure their safety. But he also warned, an even greater threat loomed ahead. That's why he asked 13 to join them, at least for now. Back to the present, that's how 13 ended up alongside the others. Ares was stunned when he saw 13 take down Antaeus with a single blow. And just to make sure the Titan stayed down, 13 delivered another crushing strike, then began absorbing his soul. Dominance is the fulcrum of all high-level Shido techniques. To absorb a soul, one must assert their will over it. Antaeus had taken enough damage that his will was weakened, unable to resist. 13 absorbed him, and Antaeus's flesh turned to ash, leaving only a skeleton behind. Our boy was growing stronger by the moment. Now, only the remaining gods stood before him. Zeus was furious. Ares had told him Suikon was defenseless. Hera, Zeus's wife, stepped forward, explaining their son just wanted to have some fun, so why not let him have his war? Zeus sat back on his throne, watching how events would unfold. Ares stepped forward, ready to face 13 head-on. Let's dive into the lore of Mugen Pass, the infinite passage leading to Suikon. It's named after the mountain spirit who dreamed of touching the stars. Every day, the pass stretches further, reaching, growing, trying to force that dream into reality. But in the end, a mountain is still a mountain. It's bound to the earth, unable to fly. Consumed by ambition, the spirit forgot its own nature, forgot it was ever a mountain at all. The spirit spirit brother laid it out plain. No matter the circumstances, 13 must not let any god pass through. That's the law of Mugen Pass. 13 asked his brother for intel on his enemies. So here is the lineup. Hephaestus, blacksmith god of weapons. Poseidon, god of the seas. Demeter, goddess of the harvest. Athena, warrior goddess of wisdom. Apollo, god of music. Hera, queen of the gods. Zeus, king of the gods. And of course Ares, god of war, the one 13 is about to face. As 13 dashed in, Ares took his stance, ready to counter. 13 blocked the sword with Ender's chains, analyzing his opponent. He realized Ares was different from Shiva. Precision was his strength. One slip, and 13 got injured. He knew he had to disarm Ares to secure victory. The fight escalated. 13 focused on dodging and defense, weaving his chains until he managed to disarm Ares. But Ares wasn't done. He stepped forward and punched 13 hard, sending him crashing into the ground. Ares' entire body was a weapon. Before Ares could call his divine sword back, 13 closed the distance and landed a powerful punch, sending the god of war flying. Meanwhile, Sekka was listening to the god's thoughts. They planned to enslave mankind, slaughtering those on their way to Suikon. Petty, juvenile, and indifferent to Godfall. Dane's body was already healing, and the tide seemed to be turning in his favor. Then a voice cut through, boasting confident. "Leave it to my apprentice to make a mess of everything." Yup, Anjong had arrived, showing off how amazing he is once again. Since Anjong has mastery over omnipresence, he sent one of his forms near the destroyed statues. What he saw there was chilling, many dead women lying across the ground, as if sacrificed in some kind of ritual. The sight was grim, and it hinted at something far darker happening behind the scenes. Let's rewind the clock and dig into the past to see what our boy 13 endured to gain the kind of power that lets him rival gods. 5 years ago, 13 was training in ways that sound almost impossible. He was doing standing push-ups using only his fingers. He counted them out, already at 4,050. And the wild part, while doing those push-ups, he was carrying a colossal statue of a hand on his back. That's the kind of insane training that explains why his body is carved like perfection itself. Just then, Ender stepped out of the death realm into the mortal realm to witness 13's progress. Anjong wanted to know the boy's backstory. Ender explained he had brought 13 to him at 9 years old. So why wasn't he further along? Anjong revealed the truth. 13 refused to kill. He limited himself to absorbing the souls of plants, never humans. Because of that, his ability to kill gods might be weaker. But Anjong also hinted at something terrifying hidden deep within him. Ender cut him off, reminding Anjong that his only job was to produce a vessel strong enough to house Ender's power. Then Ender asked if Number 3's detection had made Anjong insubordinate. Since Ender wouldn't listen, Anjong forced 13 to unleash what was inside him. Just like before, his eyes turned black with red pupils. He looked like a completely different person, possessed, dangerous, almost unrecognizable. Back to the present, 13 dominated his fight against Ares, crushing the god of war and forcing him to his knees. But then Hephaestus descended from above, unleashing his divine art, infinite armory. Weapons rained down endlessly, a storm of blades and hammers. 13 ran, dodging the first wave, but soon he was surrounded. From behind, Athena slashed at him, joining the onslaught. The two gods gave him no room to breathe, relentless in their assault. 13 was caught in their storm. But then he managed to unleash his chains, stopping Hephaestus mid-attack, and slammed him into the ground. That's when his hidden power erupted. Bloodthirsty, savage. Zeus sat watching the chaos unfold, baffled. What kind of being could stand toe-to-toe with gods? The real question gnawed at him. Who bestowed 13 this power? At first, Ares proved a worthy match. But soon, our boy was engaging multiple gods at once, dominating the fight with sheer will and unleashed strength. One after another, gods stepped in, yet 13 kept pressing forward, his power overwhelming them. Then Poseidon trapped him inside a bubble of water. But remember, 13 is a Shidu. He doesn't even need to breathe. The trap was useless. In the middle of battle, 13 argued with his spirit brother about recklessness. His brother urged him to remove the mask. When 13 did, the truth was clear. His own power was what was dominating the gods. But time was short. Sekka's warning echoed. His visions showed countless gods would attempt to cross Mugen Pass. 13 must not let a single one through. If he held the line, if he prevented their passage, he would ascend. He would become a god. That thought cut deep. 13 felt sadness. He wanted desperately to be a god, not for glory, but to bring his younger brother back to life. Because it was his fault his brother had died. Prepare yourselves for yet another big twist. twist. Back in the past, 13 and his younger brother were attacked by a group of men. 13 fought fiercely, killing them to protect his brother. But the leader of those men was none other than Kogetsu, the ultimate assassin. He used his technique, and before 13 could even realize what happened, both he and his younger brother were struck down. 13's throat was slashed open. Even as he bled out, he cried out in despair. He had failed to protect his brother. Once both of them died, they were sent to the void. As the younger brother was falling, he cried out that now he was alone. But then he saw his older brother falling too, following him. Even after death, 13 was still looking after his younger sibling. And even in that desperate moment, 13 was still smiling. The hands dragged them deeper down until suddenly they were among the masses. Most of the souls were confused, but they marched anyway. With every step, their destination became clearer. Fear gripped most of them, but not 13. His eyes carried a solemn acceptance. Before them stood a deity, the judge, the one who decides whether you deserve heaven or hell. We see the High Knight Darkholm. He argued with the judge, claiming he had saved countless lives, secured peace and prosperity for his kingdom, and trained orphan children to uphold the values of the Virtue Knights. With all that, Darkholm demanded to ascend to the seven heavens. The judge agreed his merits were many, that countless lives were indeed saved through his efforts. But those merits could not outweigh what his god found most unclean. Those orphans would never recover from what he did to them. Darkholm realized he was doomed. Panic set in, and he bolted, thinking he could escape judgment. As he ran, he grabbed 13. But then Darkholm heard a strange sound. He was being followed by the Deathlings, creatures of the Death Realm whose only purpose is to devour anyone who strays from the path of judgment. The Deathlings attacked Darkholm, and in the chaos, 13 fell beneath the path. The ground beneath him was golden, hands reached out toward him, and a shadowy figure began approaching. 13 was separated from his younger brother once again, this time cast into the lower parts of the Death Realm. In the present, he never told his brother what he saw there. The shadowy figure that approached him was none other than his father. And oh boy, the father looked buffed and badass. Now we see exactly why our boy turned out the way he did. His father, Tuhei Toshiro, was disappointed. He asked his son about the younger brother. Just then, Ender appeared, surrounding Tuhei with his chains, declaring it was time. Tuhei told his son that his presence here meant he had failed him, and if his younger brother joined him, then he had failed him as well. He called his son useless. Harsh words, but we don't yet know the full context, so don't judge Tuhei too quickly. As a creature lunged from behind to attack 13, a masked man intervened. This was number 3 Shidu. He kicked the monster away and apologized to Ender for killing it. Before 3 could guide 13 back to the path of judgment, the younger brother fell there too. Furious, he accused his big brother of trying to leave him behind. LOL, he looked adorable in his anger. Soon enough, he lunged at his brother crying, clinging to him. 3 was shocked. They were in the lower levels of the Death Realm, where the spiritual atmosphere was especially dense, yet these children moved with ease. The younger brother then spotted his father's sword on the ground and suggested they search for him, so they could be united again. That's when Anjong showed up. 3 tried to explain he had gone off duty briefly to look for the children, but by then, they were already gone. 13 and his younger brother had ventured deeper into the Death Realm, where terrifying creatures lurked. Yet they pressed forward until they were separated for the last time. Ender took 13 once the deal was completed. When he returned, he was a different person. He assured his younger brother not to worry, that they would get their family back. But remember that hidden power within 13? It seems Ender either did something to him during their deal, or that terrifying power was simply natural within him all along. Back to the present, our boy was just chilling inside Poseidon's bubble of water. His spirit brother wouldn't stop yapping, pressing him to reveal what happened when he met Ender. LOL, 13 brushed it off, saying he didn't remember any of it. But then his energy shifted. He started getting excited, and soon enough the pressure inside the bubble began to rise. Meanwhile, Dane was fully healed, dagger in hand, pointing it behind Anjong. Turns out, the two knew each other very well. The crazy part, Dane is the one who killed Anjong. So how was Anjong alive? Well, thanks to Ender for that. Anjong admitted he didn't even remember dying at Dane's hands. That's because for Shidu, the events of their deaths are erased from memory to keep them focused. For a moment, Dane dominated the field. But then another Anjong appeared, and suddenly the tide shifted. Dane couldn't understand how there could be two Anshongs at once. But that's the mastery of omnipresence. Anjong can exist anywhere and anytime. And the busted part, those aren't copies. They're all Anjong himself. Endless presences, infinite reach. Before the interrogation could begin, Dane broke free and immediately activated his anti-god magic, stopping Anjong from using his chains. Anjong was caught off guard. Ender's soul-binding chains were destroyed. Dane Dane lunged, trying to stab him with the black dagger, but Anjong blocked it effortlessly. Dane then amplified the anti-god magic around him, declaring himself the heretic Dane the Tormentor, and his mission, to destroy the Suikon kingdom. Anjong was stunned. No mortal should be able to damage his body. To strip away a god's blessing? That's something no man can do without paying a terrible cost. Normally, the offerings required to wield anti-god magic are immense: curses, disfigurement, or death itself. Yet here stood Dane, perfectly healthy, every limb intact. Dane admitted Anjong was right, but he explained the truth. Gods never give anything for free. They use divine seals to channel authority, bending universal energies, forces, and probabilities. By connecting mortals to the divine, they grant blessings, shifting fate in man's favor. Curses work in a similar way. Equity doesn't exist in the god realm. Blessings and curses require no sacrifice. And Dane, he figured out how to access anti-divine magic without paying the cost. He could bless and curse at will. Terrifying power indeed. Nearby, Thor was hidden, listening, waiting for the right moment to strike. Anjong realized Dane had bypassed divine law, but still didn't understand why he and the gods were attacking Suikon. Dane drew his black sword, cursing it with anti-magic. As Anjong closed in, Dane countered with a slash. Anjong dodged, but Dane blessed his hand, creating a hologram arm that crushed Anjong into the ground. Yet Anjong didn't die, nor did he take damage. He retaliated by summoning endless copies of himself, sending Dane crashing down. And here's why Anjong's ability is terrifying. Dane thought his omnipresence was God-given. Wrong. He's the most powerful man in the mortal realm. Dane's cursed energy-filled strike hadn't worked because what Anjong was he fighting? The Anjong of this moment? 10 seconds ago? Yesterday? The one who dodged? You see the pattern. Anjong is effectively immortal, replacing himself with any version from any time, any place. Dane laughed like a maniac, asking why Anjong didn't just kill the gods for him. That's when Thor attacked from above. Dane anticipated it, countered, and defeated Thor with a single blow. Thor was shaken. How could he lose to Dane? He had freed him from slavery, forged him into a warrior, made him perfect. So Thor asked, at what point did he become unworthy? And now we learn Dane's backstory. Thor only ever saw the warrior in him, refusing to see the man. During Dane's journey to new lands, he commanded a crew of over 300 journeymen, but they plotted mutiny. Thor's blessings brought only jealousy and hate. Dane was never considered one of them. Betrayal came as easily as breathing. Months later, Dane discovered the reason. A cave containing the god's secret, Idun's golden apples, said to grant immortality to the gods. The mutineers sought to eat them, to gain divine powers. But they didn't understand. The gods give nothing for free. A trap was set, the entrance sealed. Eternity was too tempting. Some ate the fruit to sate hunger, others hoping eternal life would save them. Instead, divinity's potency drove them mad. They gained eternal life, but the fruit offered no sustenance for mortal stomachs. Their bodies consumed themselves, undying yet weak. It was then Dane broke free and enacted his revenge. While captive, he had time to devise a method to gain vitality like those who ate the apples, but reduce its potency to avoid madness. Gruesome, but devastatingly effective. Dane's consciousness expanded with each taste. The vitality, strength, and intellect of over 300 warriors permeated his body, nourishing him for eternity. More importantly, as his mind stretched beyond human comprehension, he made a decision. He could flip the power structure. He would judge the gods, and curse those he deemed unworthy. Oh boy, what a long backstory that was, huh? Anjong dashed forward again, and Dane drew his red daggers. Though Anjong dodged, he was still injured, but by switching to another version of himself, he blocked the attack. Watching from the sidelines, Chimera and her brother asked who Anjong really was. He introduced himself as the commander of an elite vanguard, tasked with defending Suikon's borders from the threat of the gods. Dane pressed the offensive, while Anjong held back, defending. But the problem, if Anjong unleashed his full power, the entire area would be destroyed. Unlike the god realm, the mortal realm runs on its own laws and physics. The Shida bridged that gap by channeling universal energy gained from souls, pushing it to maximum efficiency. There are levels to this power. Ghost level, fighting and physical techniques that push the body beyond mortal limits. Phantom level, techniques granting dominance over natural energies, forces, areas, objects, and even people. Sekka had already seen the future. He warned that even though Anjong was strong, he must not underestimate Dane. Since Anjong was effectively unkillable, he asked Dane if he'd had enough. But Dane boasted he might have figured out how Anjong's ability worked. He claimed Anjong was just a man who fancied himself a god, a pretender. Dane fused his arm with cursed energy, ready to prove it. fist. Anjong decided playtime was over. He landed a perfect punch on Dane, breaking through Dane's divine arrays. Then he unleashed his copies, attacking relentlessly. Dane regained his balance for a moment, ready to counter, but Anjong used his chains to crush him into the ground. And yet, Dane was still smiling. Dane spoke of his desire to see the gods dead. Anjong asked, if that's his purpose, why not just let the godfall happen? Oh god, another twist. Dane wasn't a fool. Godfall isn't an event or a disease. It's a goddess. Mortals and gods alike misunderstood. Dane knew she indiscriminately killed both wrathful and peace-loving gods. To him, gods should face strife just as men do. We also learned that the one who killed Hermes wasn't Artemis. It was Dane himself. He wanted to see which gods would succumb to wrath, just like the trials gods used to test men. That's when Artemis appeared. Dane played the fool to avoid suspicion. And now, his true plan was revealed. From the beginning, he wanted all the gods near Suikon's borders. But he also wanted Suikon's mighty warriors, the Shidu, to be there. Why? You'll learn soon enough. For now, know this. Whichever side wins, Dane wins. He then used his blessing technique, creating an array of blessing magic in the space. The moment Zeus saw it, he realized they'd been tricked. Dane was the one who killed Hermes, not mortals. The gods gathered around Zeus, knowing they had to escape. Their lives were in danger here, since they couldn't access their full power. But Hera shouted at them, reminding them they would not flee. They were gods, not cowards who cower at the whims of a man. Once Dane activated that array, everything shifted. The paradigm itself broke. No longer bound by the laws of the mortal realm, the gods were suddenly granted their true, terrifying divinity. Now they could wield their full divine powers here in the mortal world. Believe me, things were only about to get more chaotic. With the situation spiraling, Anjong unleashed a technique. The moment it activated, Kimura's body felt like it was on fire. Anjong explained, it was a spatial convergence, when all versions of himself collapse into a singular point. Chimera, he warned, would likely not survive the continuous flux of spatial rifts. Then Anjong revealed one of his ultimate techniques, Thanatos. Dark red energy surrounded him, reshaping his form, giving him a new, murderous appearance. He had entered the state of murderous fate, spatial assassin. As he prepared to crush Dane for good, all the other Shidu arrived, surrounding their master. But this was exactly what Dane wanted. Think about it. If all of Suikon's mighty warriors are at the borders fighting gods at full power, what happens to Suikon itself? Exactly. Vulnerable. So let's shift to Suikon. Remember those arrays Dane activated? They weren't just around the battlefield. They were above the kingdom itself. Kogetsu realized it was time to get serious and gathered his squad. Garuda and Mayuri, Rai and Kira, Wan and Basim. These were the Red Squad, the same assassins who once served the Mad Emperor. Just then, the sky tore open. A portal formed, and from it poured the zombie army Hades had been creating. The undead swarmed into Suikon Kingdom, and then Hades himself stepped through. Now you see it. This was Dane's plan all along. With Suikon's warriors locked at the borders against gods wielding their full divinity, the kingdom itself was left defenseless. And into that void marched Hades and his army. Things are about to get exciting, chaotic, and catastrophic. Kogetsu barked the order. His squad was to bring their enemies down. Instantly, Kira and Rate went to work, slicing through zombies like they were made of paper, tearing them into pieces and flexing their strength for everyone to see. The squad's energy lit something in Kogetsu's memory, the day he was crowned the Lightning Blade Master. That title wasn't random. It was given to him by none other than the Mad Emperor himself. Wan, never one to hold back, reminded the group that it wasn't wrong to speak of the Emperor even after their betrayal. After all, he was the one who united them, taught them how to wield their gifts, and in Wan's eyes, even in death, the Emperor still casts a shadow over this kingdom. But Kogetsu wasn't about to let that slide. He refused to wear the label of traitor. To him, the Mad Emperor wasn't a savior. He was a butcher who slaughtered his own people, obsessed only with being the strongest blade master alive. Garuda, gripping his massive greatsword, couldn't resist mocking his friend Basim. How can you call yourself a blade master without a weapon? He jeered. Basim didn't waste time with words. He proved his point by smashing zombies left and right, showing that to him, a true blade master is defined by skill, not steel. Garuda answered back with his own explosive technique, shaking the battlefield as the two ripped through the undead in their own styles. While the chaos raged below, Wan and Mayuri climbed to the rooftops, eyes locked on their real target, Hades. High above, Hades spoke with chilling calm about reshaping the citizens of Suikon into his vision of the perfect family. But mid-monologue, he remembered something he had nearly forgotten. Tossing a black dish to the side, he summoned a nightmare. From it rose a girl whose hair fused with snarling, multi-headed hounds. That's right, Cerberus herself had arrived. Before she could even make her move, Kogetsu was already airborne, blade flashing. Cerberus didn't flinch. She revealed her hunger immediately, declaring she wanted to devour Kogetsu first. Kogetsu's heart was pounding. Cerberus could actually read it. That's her ability. But Kogetsu wasn't playing games. He made it clear. One wrong step, and he'd cut her down right where she stood. Cerberus didn't back off. She mocked him, pointing out the guilt and shame wrapped around his heart. And then she dropped the bomb. Kogetsu killed his own master to take the throne. Yeah, you heard that right. The so-called Lightning Blade Master? That's Kogetsu himself. But the part he never told his squad. Kogetsu also killed 13 and his brother when they were just kids. He kept that buried from his team, but trust me, what's coming next will blow your mind. Before Cerberus could even move, Kogetsu unleashed his technique. And then we dive into his past. Back then, he trained every single day, obsessed with reaching the level of his master, the Mad Emperor. He thought if he pushed just a little harder, he could take him on. Mayuri shut that down quick, saying Kogetsu was 2,000 years too early to even think about challenging their master. But Kogetsu knew the day would come. Rumors were already spreading that the Mad Emperor wanted to build a kingdom strong enough to challenge the gods themselves. That's when Mayuri laid out the truth for everyone. Before the great separation that split the world into God Realm, Mortal Realm, and Death Realm, gods and mortals walked side by side. Back then, humans weren't weak. They were stronger, wiser, full of vitality in the presence of the gods. But over time, mortals forgot that power. Only a few still remember. They're called Transcendants. And yes, the Mad Emperor was one of them. His squad, also Transcendants. The real shocker though, the Mad Emperor's real name? Tuhei Toshiro. And guess what? He's 13's father. That means when Kogetsu killed Tuhei, he didn't stop there. He went on to annihilate his children too. Tuhei wasn't just strong, he was terrifying. During training, when he unleashed his stance, the entire area in front of him was obliterated. That's why people called him the Demon Tuhei, the Mad Emperor. Back in the present, Cerberus was fighting hard against Kogetsu, but he was still dominating, shutting down her counters before she could finish them. Because she could read his heart, she predicted his next move and managed to injure him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts. Anjong and the Shida squad just arrived. And our boy 13? He broke free from Poseidon's water bubble. Remember his hidden power? It's called Shinigami. Now he's possessed by it, and his new white form, let's just say it doesn't scream hero. It looks more like a villain stepping onto the stage. Let's rewind the clock just a bit, back to the moment before 13 unleashed that terrifying Shinigami form. The pressure was crushing his chest, but our boy refused to die. He cut off his connection with his spirit brother, because he didn't want his younger brother to witness the monster he was about to become. Once that bond was severed, 13 let loose. His technique erupted, and his body transformed into Shinigami itself. The other Shida looked at him and thought he was bluffing, even in that form. But Anjong wasn't fooled. He made it clear, right now, the most dangerous person here is 13. And this is where Ender's obsession with our boy makes sense. When a Shidu is created, their souls are handed over to Lord Ender. He connects their bodies to his core, filling the void of their missing souls. This process is called soul tethering. Each Shidu is tethered to one aspect of Ender, which gives them access to his powers, but also channels pieces of his persona. In other words, every Shidu carries a fragment of Ender inside them. But 13? He was different. Being the son of the Mad Emperor, he carried a hidden power, the ability to transform into Shinigami. And when Ender touched 13's soul, something unexpected happened. It triggered a reaction. 13 didn't just tether, he stole a piece of Ender's core. The piece he took was the most powerful core Ender had. That's why Anjong never trained him properly. 13's murderous nihilism made him too dangerous. And now, with that core inside him, our boy isn't just strong, he's death itself. One of the Shida dashed at him, but 13 swatted him away effortlessly. Anjong knew he had to act fast. He unleashed his ultimate mastery, spatial inversion. In an instant, he trapped himself and 13 inside a private space. This is Anjong's domain. As Thanatos, he controls the space and distance of everything within it. His omnipresence is already busted OP, but what's about to unfold in this fight? It's beyond crazy. Now, locked inside this warped battlefield, our boy is determined. This clash with the number 1 Shidu will be settled here and now. Anjong didn't just trap himself with 13. He pulled the other Shidu in two, locking them inside with the gods so they could finish the job. And right away, number 12 was stunned. He couldn't believe our boy had reached that level of strength. But his shock didn't last long, because Apollo, the god of the sun, stepped forward demanding a challenge. Since the space was cut off from the outside world, this was the perfect arena for number 12 to unleash everything. He transformed into Erlik Khan, the Death Knight, showing off his mastery of forces. Apollo answered with his divine art, son of Helios, hurling blazing power at him. But 12 countered instantly. He threw a singularity punch, creating a dark ball that swallowed the sun whole. As for Apollo's fate after that, let's just say you wouldn't want to be him. Meanwhile, number 10, who controls the environment, found himself trapped with Demeter, the goddess of harvest. He wasn't interested in fighting a giant tree lady, so he turned it into a game. Taking the form of Anubis, he laid down the rules. Left or right, the loser dies. Demeter thought she was untouchable, but 10 manipulated the environment, summoning a massive monster to tear her down. Honestly, looking at these Shida masteries, it's obvious who's walking away the winner. Next up, Poseidon and Athena were trapped with number 11, Master of Movement, and number 8, Master of Perception. Athena charged first, but 11 blitzed her with insane speed, striking all over her body until he sliced her clean in half. Poseidon tried to step in, stabbing with his trident again and again, only to realize he was stabbing himself. That's the mastery of perception at work, folks. And then came Hera and Hephaestus, locked in with number 7, who controls thresholds, and number 6, who controls form. Their fight, over in seconds. The Shida killed both gods instantly. And honestly, LOL, it wasn't even a fight, more like a one-sided execution. Chimera, against all odds, managed to survive. Remember, she had been torn up by those spatial rifts Anjong unleashed, but somehow she held on. Sekka had already seen all of this in his visions, and for him, the only thing that mattered was that his sister was safe. Sekka knew exactly what was about to happen. Just then, his father Bacchus struck him, knocking him near the edge. That's when the mask came off. Bacchus revealed his true self. He wanted to enter Suikon, but Sekka warned him that if they went there, they'd surely die. Except, Sekka was lying. His visions weren't the whole truth, and you'll see why in a moment. For now, Bacchus realized dragging 13 into this mess was a mistake. They were now caught in the middle of chaos. Chimera stepped forward to protect her brother, but Bacchus remembered how she always interfered when it came to Sekka. So, in cold blood, he shoved her off the edge. What a father, right? But karma wasn't far behind. Dane was already there. Dane understood Bacchus's twisted logic, the kind of parent who believes cruelty builds strength. But he wasn't having it. Dane grabbed Bacchus and tossed him off the edge, just like he had done to his own daughter. Back to the main fight, 13 was holding his ground against Anjong. Even in his Shinigami form, Anjong managed to slip behind him and land a perfect kick. But Anjong still couldn't figure out one thing. Why was 13 clinging to bonds in this world? Wouldn't it be easier to just destroy everything without care? That's when 13 revealed the truth. He wanted to sever one bond, but he didn't have the strength to break it. Turns out, his bonds weren't just with the Shidu. He had ties beyond them. And the surprise, 13, son of the Mad Emperor, had once been friends with Kogetsu and his team when he was a child. They trained him every day, cared for him, unlike the Shidu who never gave him a place among them. And yes, his master was his father, the Mad Emperor himself. Finally, 13 put on the mask. With that act, he severed his bonds with the Shidu. From this moment forward, he was a blade master. Remember when our boy was just a kid and first activated his technique? The entire environment around him was drained lifeless. That wasn't just raw talent. That was the power of Ender's core inside him, the piece he stole during tethering. And now, he's wielding both his father's techniques and the power of death itself. 13 stepped into the Mugen stance void, one of the fighting stances created by the Mad Emperor. This stance focuses on balance, strengthening the body's natural springs, the Achilles tendons, calf muscles, and heel, turning them into explosive movement. The moment he moved, he cut Anjong, the number 1 Shidu, cleanly. Then he unleashed the chains of Ender, combining Shidu techniques with blade master skills to counter Anjong's omnipresence. And here's the thing about omnipresence, it's not complicated. Anjong can manifest infinite choices at will, like pawns on a board, always ensuring he picks the best move. 13 attacked fast, giving him no time to choose. But Anjong just smiled because he's that damn good. He countered with heavy kicks and punches, pushing 13 back. Then Zeus and Ares broke into the space, crashing the fight. Zeus struck, but his attack did nothing. 13 made it clear, anyone who stood in his way would die. He activated Ender's core, and Zeus was instantly reduced to ashes. That's the death force, a terrifying power that erases anything it touches, mortal or god. Even Anjong admitted, in this state, 13 can literally kill anything. Nearby, Dane saved the whole family. Even Bacchus survived the fall, thanks to Dane placing arrays that nullified Anjong's spaces. But Dane was stunned. Every god was dead, wiped out by the Shidu. Bacchus, of course, didn't listen to Dane's orders to stay put. He ran forward, thinking he could escape. Meanwhile, 13, even with the death force, still couldn't kill Anjong. That frustration boiled over. He wanted to kill the number 1 Shidu so badly, to prove himself worthy of being Ender's vessel. Backmas shouted nearby, warning that 13 would kill them all if this continued. He even prayed that 13 would never become a god. That was the last straw. Upset, 13 grabbed Backmas and killed him on the spot. Dane stepped toward Ares, ordering him to yield. Ares finally understood. The one behind Godfall was Ender. But what he couldn't wrap his head around was why Ender gave his power to number 13. Knowing he was going to lose anyway, Ares refused to yield. Instead, he vanished, escaping the battlefield. Dane caught the name Ender, but he didn't know who that was. He turned to Chimera, telling her to run. But Chimera explained her brother's vision. If 13 stops the gods here, he'll ascend and become a god, and she must witness it. Hearing this, Dane was thrilled. It confirmed his suspicions. 13 might be the one to bring divine judgment. Dane wanted to witness the birth of the shadow god, but Chimera hesitated, wondering if 13 should really become a god, since he murdered her father. Meanwhile, 13 was locked in combat with Anjong. The death force wasn't working against him. Anjong could manifest everywhere, making it useless. So 13 shifted into the Vorpal Phantom Step, an attack designed to reach everywhere at once. The Shiddu were already on their way to back up their master. 13 activated his technique, but Anjong grabbed his hand and dodged. Still, 13 wasn't finished. He activated the death force. Remember that dash he just made? It was directed everywhere. Now, with death force layered onto it, the effect spread omnidirectionally. Death force was activated everywhere at once. Even Anjong couldn't dodge that. But even after all of that, it still didn't work. Plot armor was riding heavy on Anjong. 13 was stunned when his attack failed. And then, he was transported into a different domain. Turns out, Anjong can manifest himself outside reality. He's like a quantum observer, overseeing every decision manifested by his counterparts. And the funny part, quantum, is a term humanity hasn't even discovered yet. Only Anjong knows about it. The Anjong standing here now? He's the original one. And in this reality, he's already a vessel of Lord Ender. Just then, one of the Shiddu attacked 13. He couldn't see it coming because number 8 was using her mastery of perception. Suddenly, 13 was getting beat down from all sides. The Shiddu masteries overwhelmed him. There was no way he could win. Anjong prepared to deliver the final blow. But before striking, he asked why 13 suffers for his younger brother. Bringing him back wouldn't guarantee a future for either of them. After all, both are sons of the Mad Emperor, cursed by a kingdom that despises their name. 13 smiled wide. He explained he never cared about his own life. His father was the Mad Emperor, whose bloodlust destroyed their home and lives. 13 admitted he shared those same bloodthirsty eyes. But his younger brother? He wasn't cursed. His eyes were innocent, full of kindness. Eyes that never sought strength or power, only the desire to care for those he loved. 13 declared his brother's eyes were a blessing to this world. Knowing he couldn't win, 13 unleashed the death force, aiming to take everything down with him. As the technique activated, he accepted himself as a murderer. But then, his spirit brother surfaced back into the mortal realm. It was Chimera's doing. The spirit brother didn't understand what was happening. He asked 13 if he had taken care of the people who were with them. That question caught 13 off guard, breaking his focus. He didn't complete the technique. At that moment, Ares and Artemis returned to the battlefield. Artemis fired multiple arrows, stopping 13 from destroying everything. Ares wanted to retreat back to the god realm, to warn the others about Ender's involvement here. But Artemis wasn't about to let things slide. She raised her bow, invoked her divine art, the arrow of guiding light, and fired it into the sky. The arrow streaked downward, closer and closer, ready to finish 13 once and for all. The spirit brother cried out, urging 13 to rise. But 13's injuries were fatal. He couldn't move even if he wanted to. He apologized, admitting he had been blinded by ambition, confessing he killed an innocent. He explained that once the arrow struck him, their bond would break. His soul couldn't transition to the afterlife, but his younger brothers could. The spirit brother screamed, calling him a coward. All this time, 13 thought his younger brother was weak, without honor. But the younger brother made it clear, if 13 couldn't transition, then neither would he. The arrow closed in. At the last moment, Dane stepped forward, activating his divine array to shield 13. Dane was gambling everything, believing 13 was the shadow god. Artemis prepared another shot, but Dane stood firm, confident her arrow couldn't pierce his anti-god magic. Then came the shock. Artemis fired, and Dane's arrays didn't activate. Her attack wasn't divine, it was human magic. Dane's body burned faster than it could repair, leaving him stunned. Meanwhile, Chimera wept over her father's death. Worse, she realized her brother Sekka had known it would happen and stayed silent. Sekka had glimpsed the threads of destiny and manipulated them, orchestrating their father's death. Their once proud tribe was fractured and vulnerable after Godfall. They didn't just need a king, they hungered for something greater, a god to guide them through uncertainty. By allowing their father's death, Sekka set events in motion that would unite them, redefining their destiny with 13 as the god they needed. Anjong and the Shiddu confronted Ares, ordering him back to the god realm or face the same fate as his family. Ares demanded to know what would happen to 13. Anjong explained he was no longer part of the Shidu. Whatever they wanted to do with him was their choice. Dane's body was nearly destroyed. Artemis's attack burned him relentlessly, and the truth was clear. It wasn't divine, it was human magic, which is why his arrays failed. Then the ground shook. A meteor crashed down, but it wasn't a meteor. It was Ender's body, the god of death himself, which meant one of two things. Either Ender lost to Shiva, or the goddess Godfall betrayed him. Complications stacked higher than ever. Now that Ender was dead, the question loomed: who would take on the role of death? 13 realized Ender had sacrificed so much for him, only for his ambition to crumble. So he made a plan. Using his last ounce of strength, he performed the Phantom Step, teleporting into the air and descending onto Ender's body. He began absorbing Ender's soul. Suddenly, 13 was pulled into his own personal death realm. He didn't fully understand this place, but he knew one thing. Whenever he tried to absorb a soul, this was where the battle of wills took place. Determined, he fought Ender's will, dominating completely, and absorbed his soul. Outside, it finally happened. 13 emerged as the Shadow God. And with that, the story reached its end. 5 years since its launch, and though it's doubtful there will be a continuation, what a ride it's been.